only a week ago, a presenter at Iran International, an Iranian TV station based in London, was stabbed on a residential street by 3 men who then, according to reports from the Metropolitan Police, fled the country and are said to be back in Iran. Now, this is far from the first time that we have seen examples of threats from Iran's Revolutionary Guard on Britain's streets. This time last year, I spent several months investigating the scale of it and found 15 assassination attempts on British soil related to Iran's Revolutionary Guard. This is in a whole other scale to what we've had from Russia, and yet it gets so little attention. Well, the man that was stabbed a week ago, Poria Zarati, he went back to work just days after being hospitalised from the attack to show that those terrorists won't win, those alleged terrorists won't win. But what really worries me is that you've got this scale of threat where someone has been stabbed and has seemingly got away with it, where other people have had threats to assassinate, which is known to MI5, and they've said it on record. And yet we've not said they're a terrorist organisation.
Iran International used to be... They had a studio in Chiswick, actually in the same complex I go to the gym. And when these threats first started coming, they had to close down the whole of Chiswick Business Park, basically put it on security lockdown. They had all of these armed police officers there, proper, serious stuff. This is in Chiswick, you know, suburban West London. It was all quite scary for us. But then I listened to the broadcaster that this happened to, talking about what had happened to him, and I realised I put 2 and 2 together. And you just think, this isn't actually something which just affects Iran International TV. This affects British people in communities across the country. Didn't this happen in Wimbledon or something? This is happening all across the country.
And this TV station, Iran International, had to leave Britain for Washington, D.C. for about a year because the Met Police said, we can't keep those journalists safe. Now, the idea that you've got a foreign power being so effective in their intimidation that journalists have to leave the country is just unbelievable.
It's managed to slip underneath the radar, unfortunately. But you just think, as a society, Ben, we've got so much as a country that we're dealing with in terms of terrorist attacks from left, right and centre. I don't think we have enough resources to now be looking at Iran and their threats.
And actually, I find you a bit of a hypocrite, again, week on week, no surprise, because you're happy to have uncontrolled mass migration in this country, fighting-age male men, thousands of them, crossing the channel, throwing their passports and mobile phones into the channel and coming here en masse, and yet you don't raise any security concerns about that. But as soon as an Iranian journalist attacked, you get on your hind legs and cry about it.
I think it's high horse, Ben, but look, the fact is...
Hind legs.
Most
H-I-N-D.
Most Iranians that have moved to this country have done so because they disagree with the Revolutionary Guard that runs Iran. So most Iranians do not share this outlook.
Right, so do you think channel arrivals from God knows where also share our culture and values?
Well, that's up to them to illustrate in order to get, citizenship status.
But what I would say, though, Benjamin, is that there is evidence of Iranian schools, for example, being set up in London that have ideological elements infiltrating inside of them. We've seen from many Jewish newspapers in this country that actually there's a threat to inculcating young minds in this very country against Jews, for example, and they're people that have come over here and are setting up these schools abroad. So that would be a sign of really quite sinister Iranian elements entering the United Kingdom, would it not?
There is one school that's accused of that, and it's a private school, and it's where all the elite Iranians from the regime send their kids, and it's quite shocking that it's allowed to exist. But look, let me ask you this, Darren.
Yeah.
So the government declines to prescribe them. So unlike Hamas, for example, which is a terrorist organisation, they refuse to do this. Why do you think they're being so weak when you've literally got a man who was stabbed trying to do his job as a news presenter, just days ago?
I think because they are slightly concerned about what that would mean as far as escalation and threat to this country is, but I don't think we should be cowed and hide in terror, in fear of terror like that, because then the terrorists win. I think Iran, we are facing an axis of evil in the world, not in this country. But this country, as a consequence of an unsafe world, an axis of evil being Russia, Iran and China. And Iran, I think we can't actually underplay the threat that they pose. I'm really worried about a sort of of Salisbury-style chemical attack in this country of the kind that Russia perpetrated in Salisbury by Iran to actually combat and get to people here that they don't like. But dare I say it, Benjamin, that's why I'm 100% behind Israel, because I think by the time Israel fall, Iran won't stop there. And it is Iran perpetrating much of this.
And of course, fascinatingly, most Iranians aren't Muslim. Just because it's run by extreme Muslims, most Iranians aren't even believers in Islam.
What's your solution? Attack Iran?
No, my solution is to prescribe them, as Benjamin's
But just to give you another example of how shocking it is, I spoke to a man who lives in central London and his father is under house arrest in Iran and he speaks out criticising that government. They tried to abduct him in central London in the middle of the day. They tried to drag him into the back of a van and he managed to escape. And they reported that to the police and the police didn't follow it up. There was another example where I spoke to a man who's a prominent in the Jewish community, and he's fairly old, and he and his wife were told that their grandkids could be abducted when they're walking because they're being followed by Iranian terrorists. All of this is known to police, and there are no prosecutions because they want to take the so-called diplomatic route.
How have these people that you've spoken to, these sources, how are they doing now? How are they getting on with their lives? How have they responded to this threat?
Well, all of them have said it turned their lives upside down.
Naturally, yeah.
But what I find incredible is that these are things that if any of us behave like this, you'd be getting 20 years in prison.
Yeah.
And yet, as a country, we don't, because we are intimidated by Iran. And I think that's a hiding to nothing.